Thanks,
Okay.
Deb.
Thank you so much. Right now, I would like to introduce our speaker. It is Cynthia Powell. She is the Executive Director of Calflora and has been for 5 years. Calflora is a digital library of plants, and it provides information about the plant distributions and biodiversity for use in education, research, conservation, and I might add gardening. She is responsible for coordinating all Calflora programs, research, outreach, and advocacy, as well as fundraising and management. After 3 years as Calflora's GIS project manager, she is now the executive director. She graduated with her master's degree in GIS in 2010, and we are so pleased to have her here. I know sort of how to use Calflora, and I'd really like to know more. So our speaker tonight, Cynthia.
Thank you, Deborah. And it's really nice to be here. If you have questions as we go along, I think you're all muted. If you could type your question into the chat, and then a few of us will be monitoring the chat. And if it's an urgent question, you can get your question in before we move on to the next topic. And I guess if you can't see my that beautiful Dudleya by Ron Vanderhoff, maybe raise your hand or say something or type something in the chat. I'm assuming you all can see my screen. And tonight, here's the Calflora team, first of all. Many dedicated volunteers also. If you'd like to be a volunteer, there's COVID-safe activities. Here's the outline I had for tonight. And if you could just look this over and let me know if there's some questions you had about Calflora that don't seem to be covered here, I'd be happy to go over them. Calflora basics, how you are already learning from each other using Calflora and how you can do that even more. About your local invasive species, about your local native species, rare species, map layers, planting guide, which is focused on gardens and restoration areas, what grows here, how you can use that to figure out what was that iris that you saw, what might it have been, which species of iris. For instance, iNaturalist, we do have a data feed. We are a data aggregator of a lot of different data sources, including iNaturalist. So if you use iNaturalist or if you know of observations in iNaturalist you want to make sure are in Calflora that didn't get pulled in yet, we're going to go over that. Your questions and entering. I think this is a separate presentation. A lot of chapters, CNPS chapters, have been entering surveys into Calflora, which is a really valuable way to contribute your plant knowledge to Calflora. And if your chapter is interested in doing that, I would really like to support that effort. So that's going to be kind of a discussion a little bit at the end, what we already have in Calflora, what we still need, and talking about who might be interested in doing that. So is there anything that's I haven't listed that you were hoping to learn about? Either say it or type it in the chat or raise your hand.
I was interested in having you compare it to Calscape.
Okay, so how is the planting guide similar and different to Calscape? I wrote that down. And who just asked that?
That was me, Kathleen.
Kathleen, okay. And then Linny, am I saying that right? Wants a copy of the presentation. We are recording this presentation. Yes, I'm happy to share the PDF, Linny. I wrote my email address in the top of the chat. If you could email me, I'm happy to send it. I'm happy to send it to anybody who wants it, if that's what you're looking for, is a PDF of this presentation. Am I saying that right? Linny? Maybe it's Lynn with a, I don't know. Okay. First of all, very basics. What is Calflora? We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we provide information on wild California plants for conservation, education, and appreciation. The database, it's this huge, sophisticated, powerful database. So when Kathleen, no, was it Deborah? I can't remember who it was who said that they want to learn how to use Calflora more. There's so much depth to Calflora. I'd say 90% of the users are using 10% of what's available, and that's fine. But there's a lot more that you might use if you only knew about it. So that's what tonight is about. 10,000 native and introduced species. That's all the species in the state of California. Over 2 million plant location observations, points, lines, and polygons. And that's actually, as of today, over 3 million. Thanks to specimen records, we are now feeding, or as a data aggregator, we are sharing CCH, which is California Consortium of Herbaria 2. And it's very exciting news. David Popp, I know, is interested in this news. And so anyway, 3 million. And it used to be only points, but as of 2010, we now serve lines and polygons. So if you have a big area of some beautiful Clarkia, instead of saying there's a point here, there's a point here, there's a point here, there's a point here, you can just say within this area, there are approximately 50 Clarkias of my special kind. 30,000 relationships between old and new plant names, for better or for worse. Plant names change, and it can be tricky and difficult to keep up with it. So whether you're searching for Mimulus or a Diplicus, you can find it in Calflora. We crosswalk is the verb to join all those together so that you can use old names or brand new names to find the species you're looking for. We have over 300,000 plant photos. A lot of them come from people like you. David Popp, Steve Perry, I'll go over some of those in this presentation. 80,000 unique Calflora e-visitors each month. That's 2,600 a day. And COVID increased that even more. So as of about a year ago, our numbers are just skyrocketing, which, you know, is good that people are able to learn about plants while they were stuck inside and getting out now also more. And over 4,000 active data contributors. That includes people who've added surveys to Calflora, people who've added photos to Calflora, people who have added polygons to Calflora, and a lot of you are on that list. And I'm hoping after this presentation, you'll be inspired to contribute what you know, or even if you're not sure, you might know the genus, you don't know the species, you can add it to a group called Plant ID Help Group and contribute your knowledge to Calflora. Because we're only as good as our data, and with CNPS chapters contributing their data and contributing their knowledge, it's making the database even stronger and better. The Calflora database contains all 10,000 plus native and introduced species, which is all wild plant species in the entire state of California. And we are a data aggregator, as I mentioned. So we receive, not only are we serving Calflora data, we're serving CCH, the specimens, iNaturalist data, ETD maps, NRDB, lots and lots of different data sources. And yeah, anyway, there's a list of dozens on our website that you can look through. In addition to what we are, I feel like it's important to clarify what we're not, because with this name Calflora, people think we're part of the UC system and we're our own nonprofit. We're not part of the UC system. We're not part of CalPhotos. Now, CalPhotos is part of the UC system and we serve their photos. So that gets complicated. But anyway, they're separate and we share with them. We are not part of CalIPSI, the California Invasive Plant Council. And as this group probably knows, we're not part of CNPS, which is its own nonprofit. We celebrated our 20th birthday last year. As a 501c3 and as the director of one, I need to know where the funding comes from. And I want to thank you and your chapter for supporting Calflora, because your chapter has been part of that red third, which is donations from individuals and CNPS chapters, about a third from fee-for-service work, and about a third from a suite of tools we have called Weed Manager for tracking and mapping invasive plant treatments and creating reports. Here are our popular taxon report pages. Some people call them plant profiles. Every taxon report page there's one for every wild plant species in California. I'm going to go over some of the things you'll find on these pages. I think most of you have seen at least one taxon report page before. The native status, and if it is not native, then we link, there's a hyperlink to CalIPSI, the California Invasive Plant Council. We also have quad data, which in this case is red for an invasive and it's yellow for a rare plant. So if it's only known somewhere in this quad, we have this species, then you'll see those squares. Alternate names, as I mentioned, these names change all too frequently. And whatever name you're looking for this aster, you can find it here on this taxon report page. Also nursery availability. If you want to buy it, you can see where it's available commercially from the taxon report page. I'm going to go into that. When I talk about Calscape, I'll go into that too. Write that down. For instance, for this Clarkia, here are the sources, and you can find the one closest to you. And then I guess during the COVID, you probably need to check and make sure it's still open and purchase your seeds or plants. Okay, learning from each other using Calflora. How has your chapter already been doing this, and how can you do it even better? This is my little disclaimer. So I'm giving a shout out to some of you, and if you're not on this list, it's just because I don't know that you're part of El Dorado CNPS. So please let me know that you're part of El Dorado CNPS. I have these lists of who's on in which chapter, and they're not always complete. So don't be like, hey, you didn't list me. Rah, rah, rah. Just please let me know. That's my disclaimer. For instance, this Diplicus, Steve Perry has taken a photo of, uploaded the photo to Calflora, and we are serving it as a reference photo. It's a particularly beautiful photo. And even if you take a bad photo, it's still okay to upload it. We get the location of your species, which is very, very important for how the database functions as a whole, and all the algorithms that are tied to the location in terms of soil and precipitation. But if you do happen to have a good photo that's up there that you loaded with your observation, then sometimes we have a group of volunteers, and if you're interested in doing this, you may, who pull them into these taxon report pages. Those are the plant profile pages I mentioned earlier. And here is one from Steve. Oh, and then a name change, used to be Mimulus pulchellus. Here's another one from Steve, this bitterroot. And then of course the distribution maps showing where it's found in the state. And every time you add this species to the database, another blue dot gets added to the map, which is really helpful. Some of you don't add photos, you add observations without photos, which is totally great and fine. So I'm wondering how well you know your chapter. Who is this? 86 mostly non-photo observations in these purple dot locations. Does anybody want to hazard a guess as to who these might belong to?
Lester Lubetkin.
Good guess, but it's not Lester. Any other guesses?
Andy Walker.
Yes, Annie Walker is it. So and now here's another one. How well do you know your chapter? Who in your chapter mostly maps stinkwort in these two locations? And those are the location descriptions that this person has included on some of their stinkwort observations.
Is it Deborah?
It's not Deborah. Should I give you a clue? It's someone who unfortunately cannot be here tonight.
Alice.
Yeah. So those are Alice's stinkworts. And now here's some more photos. Here's one of Deborah's photos. Actually, two of Deborah's photos for this Pine Hill flannel bush. Again, the blue dots showing where it grows in the state, species name, common name, and then also on the official taxon report pages, we have authors and more information. I just wanted to highlight these photos by Deborah, which are gorgeous. And then Steve Perry. Yep.
I wanted to say that top photo is by Lisa Cooper, who is offering to teach us all about taking pictures of plants.
Oh, cool.
At the end of next month. Yeah, Lisa Cooper.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know what the L stood for. Now I know.
And she's joined the call. She's participating.
Oh, good. Well, good. Nice photo, Lisa, and nice photo, Deborah, and nice photo, Steve. That's a chapter, your chapter came together on that one for sure. Natalia Blackburn, here's another one from your chapter. And I mean, that's a beautiful photo. That was actually added, I think, during our May photo contest 2016. And so right now we are having our May photo contest, but you can add photos to Calflora without having to be part of the photo contest if that stresses you out. Any questions before I move on to map layers? And learning from each other is a continuous, that thread kind of continues throughout the presentation. So we're not really moving away from that as we are diving into it a little bit more also. Okay. There are lots of map layers available from Calflora. Serpentine is our most recent map layer. So if you're interested in Serpentine, you can, above every map, there's a little thing that says layers, and you can open that up and choose Serpentine and go and find, you know, the Serpentine area that you're going to be visiting and what species grow there. We have a watersheds layer, which if you zoom in, becomes a sub-watershed layer, and you can search, you can query for species within a specific watershed. It can be useful also for invasive plants if you have something upstream from you where the seeds are coming downstream or the species moves downstream. That's useful to know. Precipitation, which is just beautiful and useful in all of our algorithms also for figuring out what plants can grow where, which is a topic for the planting guide. Protected areas, every single protected area is, well, every single protected area that's listed in the California Protected Areas database is in Calflora, which is almost all of them. So if you're going to go hiking at a specific, like Pine Hill, I think was something I saw on your website. If you're going to go there, you could download a plant list or an illustrated plant list or an Excel spreadsheet plant list and print it out and bring it with you. Or you could load those historical observations onto Observer Pro phone app and go and rediscover them. I call that following the dots. When you load all the observations from a specific area onto the phone app and then go and try and find them again. CNPS chapters, of course, we have a layer for that. And now the planting guide. What percentage of California is protected? Oh, David Zielinski, great question. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could look at this map and hazard a guess. 40%? But yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. What percent of California is protected? Planting guide. Any other questions before I move into the planting guide? Okay, for the planting guide, I'm going to share my Chrome screen with you, which I hope you all can see now. And this is the Calflora homepage at calflora.org. And on the left is a link to a lot of useful quick places to go. My Calflora, which includes my preferences, my observations, how to add observations to Calflora, phone apps if you want to collect data using the phone app or play connect the dots like I do when I go hiking, about Calflora, recent news. Observation search is searching through those millions of observations. What grows here is what species grow in what location. Great places, planting guide, which we're going to talk about now, and our CSE veg guide, weed manager, and then contact us. So planting guide. For the planting guide, you choose a location on the map where you are interested in planting, obviously native plants. We don't have invasives on the list. And here are the layers I mentioned where you can select a protected area. Oh, sorry, that's CNPS chapter, a protected area near you, Jepson E-Flora geographic subdivision, Jepson region, zip code. I tried to take that off and people complained. I really don't understand why they like that, but they do. Ecoregion 4, Ecoregion 3, and watersheds. And then here we have quads and quarter quads, and a few more options. And then we have precipitation, wet season, July high, growing season, accumulated temperature. Let me fold this one up. And then we have also soil, pH, salinity, depth, texture, calcium carbonate, available water, I forgot what the S is, and serpentine areas. So for your region, let's figure out what we want to plant. Is there a cross street or an address you could type into the chat to generate a list of native plants that would grow well there? and preferably somewhere in your chapter area. When I click on it here, it says El Dorado down there. Okay, I'm looking at the chat. So cross street or an address, please. Lorraine, I saw you about to type and then you stopped. South Shingle. Okay, here we go. Yeah, and if you're uncomfortable typing in an exact address, you can just put in a cross street or a general address. All right, now who did this? Madeline. Madeline, I'm going to turn off my CNPS chapter so it's not all pink. Madeline chose this location, and I assume you guys kind of know where that is because I don't, but I don't live in your chapter region. So that's where it is, north of Shingle Springs a little bit. And is it low water, Madeline? And you can unmute yourself or just type in the chat. Yes, low water. What about, okay, so then it's not riparian. What about shade? Mostly sun, so not shady. All right, and then there's even more criteria. This blue arrow says that I can open this up. And I don't want to overwhelm you, so we're just going to do that if there's too many results at this location for Madeline. And this algorithm that's spitting now is looking at precipitation. It's looking at the species that already grow there. It's looking at serpentine. It's looking at soil. It's looking at all the factors that we have showing what grows near here well that's a native plant that also doesn't require a lot of water and does not require shade to figure out what exactly can do well here. And Kathleen asked about Calscape, and the difference between, the main difference is that Calscape uses different criteria. I can talk more about what those are. So let's fold up this map with the blue area and just look at Kathleen's results, sorry, Madeline's results. And I'm gonna copy and paste this link into the chat so that you can look at it on your own computer if you'd like to. And that's a way to share information from one user to another in Calflora is you can just send the URL and say, hey, what's going on here? Do you think this looks good? What's happening? All right, here's what can grow well at Madeline's location. We have a bloom wheel, we have photos. Ooh, that allium is gorgeous. So if you're interested in growing this allium, you could see where you can find it by clicking on California Native Plant Link Exchange. Here are the nursery and seed sources for it, Humboldt, Los Angeles. Ooh, those are not close to you guys. And then an outside source in Oregon, which is also not close. You can also click on the taxon report page, which is the page I've been talking about with the scientific name, author, common name, what it is, the plant range, and you can look at the plant range by watershed or by climate model to see where it could grow. And then if you want to see where it actually does grow by individual observations, you can add that to your map. And the climate model, of course, pulls in observations in that algorithm. Okay, back to the planting guide. Location suitability. Why did this allium show up on Madeline's results? What about it? The tolerances for this narrow-leaved onion are here, and the values for Madeline's location are here, and they all match. And that's why it showed up. And I mean, you can really get lost, get absorbed, fully absorbed for hours. Watch out in results like this. So location suitability for this bush morning glory. Why did it show up on the list? And is there anything that surprises you on the list? Then you can look at it at the suitability and see why exactly it showed up here. I love this photo, Aaron Eccles. So you can also get lost in looking at all these photos. Aaron Eccles' photo of the birch leaf mountain mahogany is incredible. If you decided, wait, I only want to plant trees. I don't want all this other information. Then group by life form and just look at the trees. And here we have that birch leaf mountain mahogany again, and the trees that would grow well. Let's do one more location. Does anybody want to type into the chat a location that they want to look at for what native plants would grow well there? Susan, Paul, Lenny, Kit, Dawn, Christy. I guess I don't need to call your names out. You know who you are. Or we can move on to the next subject if you don't want to do another address.
And I'm putting something in.
Oh, good. I'm watching the chat.
Okay. Oh, Placerville Library is a good one.
Which library?
Placerville Library.
Placerville, oops. Library. Let's see. I'm not sure it'll find it, but let's just see. Is that where it is? On Ray Lawyer Drive?
Yes.
Okay. Did know where it is.
It's right in that area.
So is that low water?
That is where we have our display garden of native plants outside the Placerville Library.
Cool. So do you irrigate it then?
It is irrigated.
Okay, but should I say low water or not?
I think they're all low water.
Okay. It's not riparian and shade?
Some of it's under shade and some of it's in full sun. We have a pollinator garden that's in full sun. And then a meadow type garden that's under the shade of an oak. It's a very cool garden that we just put in, the chapter did.
When did you do that?
We've been working on it for probably 3 years. Maddie, did you want to weigh in on that? 4 years. It's taken a while to get the funds together and to the people together to do it. Wow,
that's great. And I can show you on this demonstration, speaking of a demonstration garden, which I did on the last one, is the more criteria. So there's even more. If you get too many or too few options, you can tighten your constraints or loosen them depending on what it is that you're trying to do here. It's spinning for a long time on this one. So under more criteria, you can check for wild plants in the same ecoregion, which is already by default already checked. And we could turn on ecoregions just to see which one this is. So this is Northern Sierra Foothills 6B ecoregion in the same county within 10 miles. If you want to use soil factors to choose plants, which is already selected, and if you think that's too tight, then you could loosen that by unchecking it. Omit plants at the edge of their tolerances. So if you want to just know that something's going to grow well there and not have things at the edge of their tolerances, that's selected for you already, but you can change it, and easiest to establish. So since there's 224 plants that grow well at the Placerville Library location, and that seems like a lot, I'm just going to check all these boxes and do it again and see what our search result is. So it'll be less than 224. How many species do you have planted there now?
Ooh. Maddie, do you know offhand? Probably close to 50.
Okay. Cool. So we'll see if this result is close to 50. What if it exactly matched up with what you already had planted there? That would be unlikely.
Well, we didn't necessarily select plants that were native to that particular area, since we wanted to get in a lot of penstemons and milkweeds and things like that were going to support pollinators that may not be growing in the Placerville area. But that area of the foothills is amazingly diverse. It's we are fortunate to live in El Dorado County. We have over 2,500 native plants going up the elevational grade.
Wow.
We are lucky.
Yeah.
Sorry, I finally got my computer working. Yeah, I think you're about right. There are about 50 species planted there.
Okay, well, with these tightened constraints, we ended up with 90. And here they are. And someone asked about pollinators. Yes, who
Mhm.
asked that? Linny. I don't know if I'm saying that right. The butterfly indicates pollinator species. So that's useful. And if you wanted to share this with someone and say, look, we're going to plant some new stuff at the library demonstration garden. Here's some options. You could just take this URL, copy it, and I'll just do this into
Yeah, that's great.
everyone.
Definitely want to keep adding to it. So this is a really great resource.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, fold up the map. And then, as I mentioned, as you click on a scientific name, takes you to the taxon report page, CNPLX to see where you can find it. Here's a lot of sources for this cedar, a lot of different places where you can find it. And location suitability, why did it show up on your list? Is that unexpected? Any questions about the planting guide? And CalScape uses CCH1 observations to pull in what would grow well at a certain location. And CCH1 isn't being maintained anymore. And I've had some discussions with Andrea and Leave at CNPS, and they are planning on doing something in the not too distant future to, I don't know if update is the right word, but to make it pull from something other than just CCH1, the specimen data that are no longer being maintained. Okay, let's go back to this. So then my next topic is also one where I share my screen, and it is about iNaturalist. Let's see, I think, let me just make sure of that. Planting guide, oh no, it's what grows here. So excuse me, what grows here and then iNaturalist. So let's go back to the homepage. From the homepage, there's a lot of different ways to use what grows here. And one way that I used it recently, you can click on the map to look up what grows at a certain location. I found an iris, like I mentioned, Anthony Chabot, and I wanted to know what could it be? Like, what are my options here? I know it's an iris, but I wasn't sure about anything else. So what iris grows at all at this location, and I know you guys don't live near here, so I'll just back it out a little so you can see where that is in the Bay Area. And fold up the map to look at my choices. So Douglas iris, stinking iris, or coast iris. And if you want to know where exactly they grow, so you could see if it's close to where you were when you were out there, you can display the points. And let's make these purple. Display them on the map. And then this one, let's make these stinky ones red. There they are. And these ones, let's make yellow display points. And that's only, sometimes we have observations that do not have good location accuracy. So if it has low location accuracy, that's not actually very useful. This is from Jack Stratford. This is from Anthony Wild Lagarde, who used to work at East Bay Regional Park. So anyways, you can drill down and try and figure out, you can look at the record detail. This is actually an illustrated plant list or a survey that Wild Lagarde added to Calflora that included this species. And the location is not precise on surveys or checklists. So you got to take that with a grain of salt, depending on what it is that you find. Another way you can use what grows here, let's go to somewhere near you guys, not near me. Region, CNPS chapter. Actually, should we go to Pine Hill? Isn't that a place you're protecting?
Yes.
Okay, Pine.
Let's go to Pine Hill.
Let's do that. Okay, Pine Hill. So which one is it? Let's see on the map.
The Ecological
Oh, sorry.
Reserve, maybe.
Is that right? Is it this little green area here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in selected background, which is, oh, I have to turn on my protected areas. Okay. So now if I click on this, Pine Hill Ecological Reserve, restricted access. Is it restricted access?
Yes.
Okay. And within this area, Oh, I'm not looking up iris anymore. Well, I could. Turns out there's two irises, or no, one. Two records of one iris, the ground iris. Have you guys ever seen another iris there?
No,
Jenna would
No.
know, but I think that's probably true.
no,
No. Okay.
no.
And let's look at, you could have a plant list if there was specific species you were interested in looking for at Pine Hill Reserve. You could look at a plant list. I'm interested in knowing what rare plants grow there, because if you want to protect it, that's really important. So let's search for rare plants here. Fold that up. And so on your website, you had a list of the rare plants that were at Pine Hill that you knew of. Are they already on here or not? I could check that.
Yes.
All of them are here. So you
What's-
guys, yeah.
What's funny is that the Calistegia is not present on Pine Hill itself, even though it's characteristic of the Pine Hill gabbro soils to the north and south of Pine Hill. It's not on Pine Hill.
Oh.
Isn't that
let's-
strange?
Let's see who says
Who
it's
said
there.
that? Who said that?
Who said that? Display points. Why aren't they displaying? Oh, clear points. Oh, maybe it's because of my iris. Oops. Because of my display points. Huh. All right, we can do this another way. We can go to the taxon report page and click on Dorado County. And I'll paste this into the chat so you guys can look at it also. So this Calistegia in El Dorado. Oh, where is Pine Hill? Is it here? Is it this one?
Yep.
Oh, it's Mona Robeson, BLM.
Oh.
So it's from 2011. So this is a checklist, which means that it was found close by, but
okay.
not necessarily like you guys were saying on Pine Hill. It could be
Okay.
in this vicinity. So that's also, I think, why it might not have shown up on the other page. Let's see what she says about it. Survey checklist entry. Yeah, so checklist from made from a single visit, 500 meters in elevation, BLM land. Yeah, so we could talk to Mona about where exactly she saw that species.
Yeah,
but-
so if it was BLM, the ecological reserve is actually state.
Okay.
So she probably saw it on another part of the preserve, which has BLM land. Yeah.
Okay. And here we can look at the rare plants that someone has said at some point that they grow there. So the ragworts showed up on the map and you could drill down there. Oh, Deborah, there you go.
Yeah.
What do you know? Isn't that nice? That's so there's a lot of different ways to use Calflora and to use what grows here. And you know, choosing a location and searching by rare plants is one. You can do like I was doing, and you know that you saw a certain genus there, you don't know what the species was, or you saw a family and you don't know what the species was. You can draw a polygon around an area. Like I want to know what grows in this whole area here. Stop drawing and then say within my polygon, what grows there. There's a lot of different ways to use what grows here. And one of my favorite things to do is to go to tools and create an illustrated plant list. And then you can share this with your friends, and I'll put it in the chat again. So these are the rare, location Pine Hill, the criteria are listed here, and here are the results. And you can say, I don't want photos, or I do want photos. You can group by family, order by bloom start month, show bloom period. I love showing the bloom period, show photo links, and change your display. And that a lot of things you might want to do are located under tools. Every single Calflora application has this tools at the top. There's a video about how to use it, printable version of this page, location profile, observation search, planting guide, place names. You can go into these rabbit holes and learn more that way. Okay. Let's see. So planting guide, we went over what grows here, and then iNaturalist was next before we get to surveys. So iNaturalist is a source of a lot of data, but it also has a lot of data we don't want and a lot of data we do want. So how do we filter those out, and how do we get what we want, like the good stuff? How do we get the wild plants that are accurately ID'd into the Calflora database so people don't say, what, that's impossible, it can't grow here? We have an automatic feed that looks at the locations of the species that people are saying that they're seeing in iNaturalist and whether they can actually grow at those locations based on our models, our climate model and our watershed model. And then we also have a density filter, and then we look at whether it was planted, like was it cultivated or was it wild, because Calflora is a wild plant database. And then we pull observations in. Now that said, there might be something that you or somebody else added of a specific species in a specific region that didn't get added to Calflora and you want it in there. How do you do that? Every month we do a data pull. And if something isn't in this data pull that you want, let me slow down. Start at calflora.org, go to add observations, add records from iNaturalist. And then let's go to somewhere close to you guys. Is there a species that you want to look up? Go look up Calistegia. I can look up this Calistegia, search and see if there's any that didn't get added. Ooh, this is kind of a big area. I should have zoomed in more. Search. And say the area radius within 1,000 meters, because okay, there aren't any. Well, they all got pulled in. Or if you have an iNaturalist handle, does anybody want to, does anybody use iNaturalist and want to type their handle into the chat, and I'll look you up on here and see what didn't get pulled in? Nobody watching the chat?
Hi, Cynthia, this is Deborah.
Hi, Deborah.
Can it also just be your username, this iNaturalist handle thing?
If you use iNaturalist, yeah, it probably is your username, but not an email address, just a username.
Okay, so try D. Nichols, because I've got some stuff that I'm surprised is not in here.
Is it DNICHOLLS?
There's no H.
Like that?
Yeah.
And also you have to set your iNaturalist preferences so that we're allowed to pull your stuff.
Yeah, I've done all that.
You have
But-
DNICOLLS.
Yeah. It's,
And it could be that the reason it's not showing up here is because so everything other than this clematis we pulled into Calflora already of yours. So we can look it up and find it, everything else that we pulled in. And this one we didn't pull in. And you know, our algorithm, I can't tell you exactly why it didn't get pulled in. It could be that there was already too many of this species close by. It could be that it looks somehow cultivated. It could be that it looks suspicious for some reason. Do you think this is a good thing to put in Calflora?
well, there's probably quite a few other entries for it at that location. That's up there at Red Table Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
There was a jillion of them on the side of the road. I just hadn't seen them before.
Well, let's add it. So I clicked on the ID. You can look at Deborah's
So what I was
details. Yep.
specifically, you know, I thought that as long as it had research grade in the,
Mhm.
you know, in iNaturalist, that it would have been pulled in.
So there's a lot of different filters that we have, and one of them is research grade, but there's just so much stuff in iNaturalist that we don't want and so much that we do, and making sure that we don't get what we don't want, we do get what we do is impossible basically. So we do what we can to filter it. And sometimes things slip in that we don't want, and sometimes things don't get in that we do want. Like for instance, this one looks great. So that's the detail. We can look at location close up and I'll add it to Calflora. So now it's in Calflora, and we can go to, from the Calflora homepage, let's search observations and see what else from Deborah has been added to Calflora via iNaturalist. And I know that it's coming in from iNaturalist. That's strange. Anywhere in map area. I wonder if there's something about observer that has to be different.
I'm sure that's my username. It's-
Yeah, well, and it worked over here. You know,
Oh,
when we were looking
right.
at it here. So why don't I see it here? Huh. Anywhere, not in map area. I'm gonna have to get back to you, Deborah, on that because I'm not sure why
Okay.
that's not showing up. But whenever there are things you want to add from iNaturalist, again, from calflora.org, add observations and add records from iNaturalist. Any questions about that? All right, then entering chapter surveys into Calflora. And this is a big topic, so I'm going to save it for a future presentation with maybe a subgroup of you who are interested in doing this. Here are the current survey locations in your chapter region, all these green squares. And here's just a tiny little excerpt of a few of them. You know, various dates, various sources, various location descriptions. Oh, look, Pine Hill Preserve and Vicinity, Ramona Robeson. So that is the one we were just looking at. That's interesting. How did you get his page? Good question. Let me show you. How did I get here? So from calflora.org homepage, you want to search all surveys in the database about Calflora. And here is our mission, registration, joining the community, lots of information over here, search for plants, what grows here. So survey checklist search, go under layers, open up CNPS chapter, back this out, and go to El Dorado in selected area and search. So I will paste this into the chat also, so you guys can follow along. And then you can sort them by observer, for instance, or by the name of the survey, or by the date. 1977 is the oldest one you guys have. And scroll through. So if you have surveys or plant lists or checklists from an area in your chapter, if it's in here already and it's not complete, it's still worth adding. If it's in here already and it looks fine and everything is complete about it, then that's great. But if you would like to add surveys, so a list of plants from a specific area, like let's look at Dean Taylor's 1977 one. So Peavine Point Research Natural Area. Here are the 29 species that he said he saw near here, not at this location, but near here. And then we could look at a more recent one, 2019 SPI Botany. So in this huge polygon here, in 2019 November, mostly conifer forest between Omo Ranch and Cook Station, they found these 177 species. Can also note negative data. So if you looked for something and didn't find it, like say they looked for this Carex and they didn't find it, then this, instead of saying 1+ would say 0 for the plant count. And I really can't emphasize enough how valuable these are coming from you guys from CNPS chapters. I've talked about the photos being really important. I've talked about observations like Alice's observations, Annie's like everybody's observations from your chapter, and surveys. And surveys are, you can add hundreds of plants in a minute and you just copy and paste them from a spreadsheet or from a Word doc or a PDF into Calflora saying within this polygon somewhere we saw these 100 species. And then you can, a fun game I do, it's really fun, is go to what grows here at a specific location and see how the number of plants that grow at a certain location changes after you publish a survey for that area. Okay, so that is surveys, and I'll have you guys, after this meeting, discuss amongst yourselves and see who's interested in being part of that project to add chapter your surveys into Calflora. And now, are there any questions? You can talk out loud or type them in the chat, whatever's easiest for you.
All the data you have is from volunteers, people like Deborah and Alice and all who see it in the wild and then report it? Or do you have anybody employed that goes out and checks things?
We're an aggregator, so we have a lot of data coming in from Deborah and Alice, Steve, all of you guys, but we also have a list of sources for all of our data sources. So let's see if I can remember where this list is. Plant list definition, group definition, observation download, about observation data sets. So here's a list. Let me just make it a little bigger. Data sets in Calflora, and data ownership is retained by each data contributor. So in addition to single, one-offs here and there, I mean, David Pop, for instance, has thousands of observations in Calflora. And then we have thousands of observations from CCH2, actually millions from CCH2, or 1.5 million from CCH2. We're gonna take CCH1 down because it's not as up to date as CCH2. Cosumnes River Preserve, Yellow Star Thistle Mapping Project, Dean Taylor, very prolific. Invasive plant management. So we have EDD maps. We have all these data sets in addition to individual people coming in. The Nature Conservancy, the Forest Service, Yosemite, California State Parks. All what you're seeing in Calflora is combined from all these different data sources in one place. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, and then Joey Dorel Canapa says, hi, from San Benito County. I came in late and have a question. Is there a reason that I cannot print plant labels? Oh, that's it. That's a great question. And you can, at least last time I checked, you could. And probably a lot of people don't know what you're talking about. So let me just make it clear. If you want to submit a specimen and like, let's say from my observations, well, this is Deborah's then. Let's not do that one. Let's not do that one. Let's do this one. So here's my observation of this Wyethia, and I want to submit it as a specimen. So under tools, print herbarium label, and then this you photocopy onto acid-free paper and submit it also with your specimen. And it has the error radius, the coordinates for the location, the county, the family, species name, author, date, and then that it's a specimen submission. So Joey, does that answer your question? Is that what you mean
Yes.
by plant label?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I actually work with a number of clients who I want to give them that information in a notebook form. And
Oh, cool.
so yes, that is exactly what I'm asking. So great. Thank
Well,
you.
if you want to give clients information, like, is it all your observations, Joey?
No, it's actually the amount of information you have on here is so amazing. And people, I run into a lot of people and work with volunteers who are always interested in various plants, but aren't ready to dive in as deeply as the rest of us like to do. And so it would be so helpful if they ask about a particular plant, say abronias, to be able to print out some of the various ones in our area. To be able to show them to kids too, students.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you wanted to print out, let's do observation search, Abronia. Let's do it for closer to you and not so close to me.
Yeah, Monterey would be,
Oh,
so I
Monterey.
also work in Monterey Dunes.
All right. Monterey. Let's see. And is there a specific abronia?
Yeah, the umbellata.
Okay. So in map area, which there are 5. Let's back it out and get a few more. Okay, so here they are. Ooh, that's a gorgeous photo from Mary. If you wanted to print these, I think a good way to do it would be to go to download results and choose a format. So you can have CSV, Excel, tab delimited, bar delimited, JSON, GeoJSON, shapefile, and then export it that way. I thought you meant plant label, like for submitting a specimen.
I was thinking plant labels like the wonderful plant labels that come to our plant sales, the CNPS plant sales,
Oh,
which
yeah.
have all the various information, you know, how much water, that kind of stuff. I mean,
That let's see, how would you get that? So if you go to this species and you go to plant characteristics, so this has how much water, and this is, see, it's based on wild plants also. So you could use these photos as long as you're accrediting the photographers on your labels. And you could use this information on your label, but there might be other information that you would want on your label too.
okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. There are 2, and so Paul Watts says there are 2 entries for North Tahoe Regional Park. Why? 2 entries of what, Paul? I didn't see where that was. Oh, on here, are you looking at this list? North Tahoe Regional Park. No? How can you use Calflora for plant identification? I use it for plant identity. I think you can use it in many, many different ways. Paul, I'll get back to your question after you explain more about what it is, the 2 entries for what. Where did we see that? So if you're wondering what something is, here's what you can do. Who asked this? Tom and Lorraine Martin. Go to what grows here. Where were you? Where were you when you saw this thing that you're wondering about? Print out, let's see. I'm just gonna go to, whoops, sorry. Layers, protected area. Here's one. So you were in this Sierra Foothill Research and Extension Center, for instance. Let's do Lower Yuba River, no access. Okay, somehow you gained access to this Lower Yuba River and you saw some really cool stuff. What was blooming? And it was blooming. So bloom month, May. What in this area is blooming now? 4 things it could be. Clematis and jewelweed. Okay, so then that narrows it down. And if you're in a bigger area, like let's say you were in Tahoe National Forest, that would be really, you get a lot of results for what was blooming in May in Tahoe National Forest. But if you could draw a polygon around where exactly you were in Tahoe National Forest, like say you're just east of this little lake, stop drawing, in polygon search, 43 species bloom in May in this polygon. Wow, that's incredible. 43. So then you could, if you've maybe narrowed it down to the genus, you could look up a specific genus in that area, like Brodea. Say you know it was a Brodea, you just don't know which one. Then you could go up here to, where's the results? Photo, no, it's not that. Points, oh here, plant names, Brodea. Search again. So of these 3 Brodea, which one did you see? And then go to the taxon report pages for each one. look at the photos, look at more information about it. You can look at the eFlora. If you collected it, you can do some measurements and see if they match up with this Brodea minor. So that's one way you can work with IDing plants using Calflora. Another way, does that help you? Another way is, I have so many tabs open, I'm just going to close a bunch of them. Starting from the home page, say I was in Dorado County and I saw something that was, well, you might not know if it was native or not, or you might think it was rare, but not be sure. Let's see what rare plants grow in El Dorado County above, gosh, meters. Oh, I was thinking meters now. Let's see, so I don't know. I know that, let's see, 350? Is that a normal thing to write? Above 350 meters. So that's, you could say, okay, I know I was above 350 meters. I know it was rare, and here are your options. Or I think it was rare, and here are the rare things that grow in El Dorado County above that elevation. And you can print from what grows here after you have your 3 Brodea, or if you decide that you don't want to limit it to that, you want to see all the species that grow within your polygon in Tahoe National Forest. Go to Tools, printable version of this page. You could print this out and bring it with you next time you go there. If it wasn't blooming in May, if it was, blooming some other time or not blooming at all, you could say any, probably get even more than 43, 62. And so this is everything that grows within that polygon. So, I mean, there's so many different ways to learn and to ID and to help you ID plants. You can also contact people. So if you want to know, I saw this thing and I don't know what it is, we have a group called Plant ID Help Group, where if you took photos, you can add them to that. So my Calflora groups, here, I'll just put this link in the chat so you guys can all join Plant ID Help Group. And then activity. So what's the recent activity in this group? Kelly Wilson commented on this Quercus. She says, I agree, it looks like an Engelmann, but it might be this other thing. Nick Ward posted a bunch of unknowns from Mariposa County. He wants help identifying those. Roy West posted this. Let's just look at it. Sticky zinc foil, and he wants to know, is this correct? He's asking for help. If anybody knows the sticky zinc foil, they could write back and say, yeah, you got it, or no, that's not right. David Pop is pretty active in this group. And oh, this is my Clarkia. Maybe you guys can help me with this, although this Clarkia is not in El Dorado County. I knew it was a Clarkia, but based on all the Clarkias that grew at this open space, I still wasn't sure which one it was. So I'm asking for help with that. Randy Huey, an unknown. Kelly Wilson again, Jacob Martin. Anyways, here's a group where you can post photos and get help, and then things are tracked. So the comments that people leave are tracked along with this observation. If Mary decides to change her lupin to a different kind of lupin, there's a history of how the observation has changed, stored in Calflora. Now, Paul Watt says, when I go to what grows here, North Tahoe Regional Park shows up twice. Oh, well, I don't know. Let's try. Any questions about Plant ID Help Group before I go to Paul's question? Okay, thank you. Okay, good. When I go to what grows here, oh, I know what you're asking. Okay, so I think he's saying he goes to North Tahoe. Yeah, why does it show up twice? That's the California, what is it called? Protected Areas CPAD, California Protected Areas Database. And what they have is what we serve. So why does it show up twice, and are they different? You could just click on both of them. They're like a hair away from each other. See how that orange crosshair is moving slightly west, I think? West and then east. you know, it's, I don't know why, I don't know why the California Protected Areas database did that. It's a great question, but they did. So we put them both in there because we don't want anybody to not find what they're looking for, but that is a bit mysterious. Okay, any other questions? If you have questions later that come to you middle of the night or whenever, go to the homepage again, calflora.org, contact Calflora, and here is our email address, spprt@, here, I'll paste this into the chat so you guys have this. And you can email us, and there's a team who received this email, and we are fairly quickly to respond within probably a couple days, maybe sooner. And and if you have a question about, for instance, Mary Conway's lupin, and say, I have this question, take this URL, copy it, and paste it into your email so we can better help you. You're more likely to have a question about what grows here like this, or this illustrated plant list. Take that URL, copy it, and paste it into your email. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us. I am overwhelmed with the information, and I'm very glad that it will be available on YouTube.
Yes, me too.
So
Thanks,
thank you
Deborah.
so much.
Thank you very much.
I will survey the members who might be interested in a more in-depth presentation when our brains have settled down from this presentation.
And that one's actually more specific to surveys. It's not really more, it's like really about getting your chapter surveys in Calflora is that specific topic. And it usually is about a 30-minute, we talk about who's going to do what, we generate a list of who's doing what, and then ready, set, go, like that. I'm going to put my email address in the chat. And if any of you want to be on the Calflora email list to receive information about new and great things, let me know and I'll add you to the list.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
for
thank you.
joining us.
Yeah,
This
I'm
has
happy
been
to be here.
great.
Thank you for having me. It's really nice to be able, even though I can't be there in person, which would be even better. It's nice to be able to meet you guys virtually at least.
I'm not sure it would be better in person because you're able to just hop online.
That's true.
And our current venue, the Veterans Hall, I don't think it has internet access. So, you know, we would be.
That's true. There are advantages, and I can, you know, sleep in my own bed tonight and not travel, and that's true. But yeah, there are advantages. And thanks,
We're
David Kopp.
learning.
He's saying bye too. Yeah, he's definitely prolific. Okay,
night,
thanks
everybody.
everybody. Have a good night.